Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey, Stafford and Rory O'Neill with you, and we've been joined by referee Barry Kelly and by Shane McGrath of Tipperary. Shane McGrath, who formerly had on his CV on the last Tipperary team to win in Nowlan Park, but he's in work this morning amending his CV. He has to take out that mention now.
The Wikipedia page is changing.
Excuse me if I'm a little bleary-eyed, lads. I've stayed up to watch the Super Bowl for work purposes, and it was worth staying up for. As I said in the live blog, there's nothing worse than staying up to that time to watch a game of American football that turns out to be one-sided because they can be a bit of a procession. So thankfully it stayed interesting up until the last couple of minutes, because a couple of hurling matches there yesterday now over the weekend that we were expecting to go down to the fourth quarter, and they really didn't. They really didn't. Clare just either got blown away against Limerick or didn't show up. We can discuss. As mentioned, Tipperary went to Nowlan Park and silenced the baying mob. Dublin, their match against Antrim was probably the final scoreline looks a bit closer than the match itself was from what we listened to, and Cork built up such a lead against Galway in the second half that they were able to allow Galway a flurry of scores at the end and still be relatively comfortable. I think they just did that to torture Galway people who probably wanted to nip away and beat a bit of traffic, and then they realised, oh God, we better stay. It was a nice bit of torture from the Cork lads. But Barry, we won't talk too much about Wexford's glorious 11-point win over Westmeath. Were you at it, Barry?
I was indeed, Mikey. Yeah, I was indeed. 11 points wasn't flattering to Wexford by any means. Like I was estimating. I just asked some of the journalists afterwards. So I reckon it was 20. I said 23 wides. I wasn't counting, but actually it was 20 at the end. The usual, you know yourself now, Mikey, at this stage, the usual Wexford kind of issue in terms of like no such thing as a bad wide, but there were bad wides yesterday in terms of frees. Lee was on the frees the first half and missed 2 or 3. Young Banville came out at half time, but they were impressive. I went. In terms like Hughes Park, South Mullingar, we've got 3 home games. We've got a horrendous league campaign in terms of we have Cork away next in Park Equate, which no one's looking forward up here because, you know, Cork obviously big pitch, top class sod, and we have Galway and Limerick at home. Like, you know, the league's a bit one-sided really in that sense. Having Dublin, Laois and Antrim in the other section, like we're going to be facing 5 defeats and then with a league anyhow. But I thought Wexford impressive enough now in terms of movement and, you know, a lot of off-the-shoulder stuff, a bit like what I saw in or more on Saturday night. And I might get back to that as well because I had a bit of a bee in the bonnet with the whole handpass thing because...
Yeah.
But yeah, Wexford, I'd say Dara was happy with them now. Yeah.
As alas, Barry, I don't think any of the top-tier teams are going to be judged on the results against Westmeath or Laois this year is the thing. Maybe Antrim are a bit closer. Anyway, to meteor matters in the Marble City yesterday then, Shane. You were there. You could only be impressed, Shane, just from... I only saw the highlights of it, but my God, the Tipperary attack is purring. And as what would be as pleasing for you folks, I suppose, is that they gave Kilkenny plenty of it physically as well. And for a young team with a fair few new players being blooded, they didn't seem too intimidated by the surroundings or anything else.
No, they weren't. No, it's like, I think people need to realise too, Mikey, like, I mean, that's the first time we've bet Kilkenny down there since 2008, and we've had a lot of heartache down there since, you know, and I've been involved in a lot of that. Like, we lost 2 league finals down there, lost in 2013 in the championship down there, and you know, they were all very hard defeats to take. And like yesterday, I'm sure that was a motivational factor for them. The game, you know, it was fine. You know, it was a league game, and the atmosphere was poor. For a Tipp Kilkenny game, there was over 10,000 people there now. They like to stand. We were in the RTÉ Grass and the covered stand, as we call it, down there, and like that was packed. But and the feeling going even up along was, I went with my brother and my wife, and brought our youngest with us. And like the feeling going up along the road was just going to be right atmosphere here today. And, you know, there's a right crowd going in. And I suppose we just didn't get that maybe in the game. Like it is what it is. It's the league. Like, and what I found interesting was, I suppose, lads, is Kilkenny are, well, for me anyway, being there yesterday, they seem to be going short a bit more than what we've seen maybe in previous years. And, you know, that's new management, new style and everything. But lads, like the frustration in the crowd, like you're talking about people who are just used to seeing Kilkenny for a long time go long, half forward line win it. If they don't win it, there's a breaking ball, there's a midfield coming through. They went short a few times yesterday, got turned over early doors, and just the whole the groans from the stand, but just the will you drive it? Will you just drive it? Like it just like felt like one lad would say it down here, another lad would say it here. Tipp were by far the better team yesterday. They were fitter, they were stronger, they were sharper. Their work rate in their forward line in particular, like there's a guy, Alan Tynan, like his work rate was phenomenal yesterday, you know. Just Tipp seemed hungrier there yesterday. Now look, Tipp probably had more of a hand that they could choose from, because, you know, I mean, the best hurler of all time, in my opinion, was there with his wife and his little baby girl. So he wasn't there, you know. Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen, Richie Reid, you know, the Ballyhale boys, they'll be a massive impact when they come back. You could see a few of the Kilkenny lads, you know, are still in early doors training as well. You know, they'll be a lot leaner, a lot fitter come championship. But I just thought Tipp they made hard work of it, lads. They won by 6 points, but like, I thought Tipp were 9, 10, 11 points better team yesterday. Look, that's fine. Look, lads, if there's one thing I took out of yesterday, it's this, right? That Nowlan McGrath was, is, and always will be a class hurler. And just the things he did yesterday, we're always talking about his points and everything, and we want to move on to other things as well. But I just, myself and my brother were there now yesterday, and like, I just watched Noel, right? And we just said, after once or twice, said, let's keep an eye on this now. 6 times, lads, he got a flick in to dispossess a Kilkenny lad. Now, not like, no malice, like, granted, you know, like, you know, it can be on the edge, Barry, I suppose, you know, that if you don't get the ball, if it's a free, but 6 times to a tee, he got in, he got a flick away, and we got something out of it. And he mightn't get the kudos for that maybe in highlight programs or on papers, lads, but he just showed his class yesterday. Jason Ford, 115, lads, this guy is striking the ball yesterday. And if Kilkenny, if there was a bit of light for Kilkenny out of it yesterday, is that Billy Drennan is the real deal. And this guy is going to get better and better. He's well able. We tried 2-3 guys on him yesterday. He was well able all the time, picked off a few points from play, and he strikes the freeze, lads like TJ. They're just like arrows. It wasn't going that much over the bar because there was a wind there, but he's just arrowing them. And lads, finally, before we move on, the smart splitter, lads. I think it is causing an issue, lads, with some players. Not everyone, but 9 times was dropped short from Nowlan Park yesterday. 6 times by Kilkenny and 3 times by Tipp. Their goalie was coming out, Tallis, and he came out and he was taking frees, and there were like the breeze. He was coming out like to his own 65, like, which is goalkeeper territory, lads, really, for frees. But I think the smart splitter is an issue for some lads. I think the rims are bigger, and I don't think it's going as far. Fair enough, it's a bit colder now. But look, it's just something I'd say. But look, happy days being a Tipp person going home yesterday, lads, for the first time in a long time from Nowlan Park.
Yeah, it's interesting, Rory, isn't it? Just to go back to the disgruntled Kilkenny fans, if there was 10,000 people in Nowlan Park, there's a good chance 5,000 of them weren't born the last time Kilkenny played a match that wasn't managed by Brian Cody. They've become very used to a single style hurling, and in that time, hurling has changed, and every other county has adapted to some extent or another. In fairness, Davy Fitzgerald has managed half of them and speeded the process, etc., etc. But you know what I mean? Like, everyone has adapted in some way, and Kilkenny haven't had to. And Cody has, you know, said what he said about tactics and yada yada, and they got very, as Shane says, got very accustomed to a certain style of play. And Derek King is obviously going to change things. He's obviously going to adapt to the way clubs play, the way the opposition play. It's going to be some culture shock.
Massive. But at the same time, I think it's going to be a good test for Derek Ling as well. He's going to have to try and stake the course on this. And that's like running a gauntlet of 140 years of hurling tradition. It's going to be a really difficult pill for some of them to swallow. I think what you'll find is they will get a blend right over time. And at the start, when you try and implement this kind of game, it tends to be, you tend to overdo it because you're trying to figure it out. I mean, we saw at times, certainly from Limerick on Saturday night, where they must have had about 10 hand passes across the full back line at one stage, which led to a brilliant Kyle Hayes score. So look, I just think they're feeling their way through it. The difficulty for him is to try and bring the supporters with him on that front. And look, I think he's made of stern stuff. I don't think it's, moans and groans will bother him too much. I mean, if you think back to when Cork,
I think he'd be shocked if he wasn't getting them.
Yeah, but if you think back to even when introduced the short puckouts, the Cork supporters were exactly the same as the way the Kilkenny supporters are now back then. Like they were moaning and groaning and will you hit the bloody thing long and all this type of stuff. But they eventually started to understand, look, hurling, like the way it's played is going to change. It's going to evolve and you kind of have to move with it. You can't just lamp 30-70 ball and hope for the best anymore, because lads can put the ball over the bar from such long distances now, handling the opposition. And the incentive in terms of possession, it's not exactly the wisest tactical plan from a management point of view. But I think yesterday, like, I'm loving the look at Tipperary. I think we got a glimpse of the potential within their team. There's a cohesion and fluency in their play now, which I think is definitely aided by a selection policy. They appear to have a renewed spirit. They played some sparkling stuff at times there yesterday. And as Shane mentioned, they were by far the better side. They were much better than what the scoreline suggested. They kind of allowed Kilkenny back into a game that they had no right to get back into, really. And that'll be a small bit of a concern for Liam. What I will say, though, in relation to Kilkenny, and again, to echo Shane's sentiments earlier, we shouldn't underestimate the influence the Ballyhale lads have. Like, it's a third of your team, starting team. There'll be 5 Ballyhale lads go into that team when they picked for championship. And so Ballyhale's success in the club, it has a debilitating effect on Kilkenny's league preparations every year. We've seen this before. And once they come back in, I mean, Shane mentioned the players that will come in, and then you probably have another 2 or 3 that might kind of, slot in on the panel. So I wouldn't be pushing any panic buttons just yet from a Kilkenny perspective. And I just think from Derek's point of view, maybe he needs to have a forum like they did with Southampton last week and get the supporters into a room and explain the short game to them. But look, I think they're just going to have to stay the course with this, and they will get the blend right over time.
Barry, you obviously had a front row seat for some of the all-time great matches between these two counties, and one of the reasons people paid the admission fee was the fact that they knew the puckouts were going to be rained down on the half-back and the half-forward line, and you were going to get either Tommy Walsh or Shane there coming out with an incredible catch, or else you were going to get the ball breaking and all hell would break loose for 30 seconds. Have you seen the end of that? Is that not going to happen anymore in Kilkenny Tipperary matches?
That's funny, Mikey. I was just thinking of that 2014 final, which is such a fantastic game.
Oh, yeah.
There's also thinking as well, like Jackie would be regarded as one of the best cornerbacks of all time. He'd be close to being any team of any game or any whatever with his awards and his. But like Jackie himself, I tell you, I'd say that if he'd been born 15, 20 years later, like Jackie was very much, Shane obviously marked him, or certainly maybe not marked him, but he was in his vicinity. Turn onto his left, bang. If it didn't go 90 yards, about 95. It never went less than that. And now the modern game, I mean, I came across some stat on the rules committee that the average number of hand passes in the game now is between 100 and 120 in hurling, like, which is phenomenal. You mentioned Mikey about 10 hand passes across the field or Rory in the Limerick game. Like, there was easily, and that's another bugbear, because I would say yesterday in Mullingar, it was 100 hand passes. There were 10 done properly. Like, it's meant to be a release and a strike. It's meant to be like handball, really. And it's just, you watch them before the game. There's none of them done properly because it's such a key game now. Like, I watched Waterford against Laois on Saturday evening, like, and there was so much off the shoulder stuff, so much like coming on, and it has to be just literally flicked out. It's just it's basically thrown. It is being thrown, and I know the referees are meeting this Wednesday in Dublin, and I think they're going to get it hard and fast from the lads in Croke Park, because
I think it's very hard on referees, though, Barry. Like, a lot of the time, hand passes are executed, they're out of vision. Like the player will.
Yeah,
maybe
I know.
make-
It's
I don't know.
Rory, if they're not blown though, the next you have three rounds of the league really, because you're not going to blow them in knockout stages, and you certainly won't blow them in the round robin of the Munster Championship in 8 weeks' time. There's 3 rounds of the league left to try and get some kind of clamp on it. I mean, I'm more and more inclined to the Conor O'Donovan type flick it off the hurley, because it's become an absolute endemic in the game now, and it's basically just fouling the whole time. It's just throwing. Every 1 in every 10 is done properly.
What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, that's fair stat now, like the amount of hand passes that we're doing. And look, obviously the game has changed. I suppose there's arguments both sides, isn't there? Like some people will say they're just so quick now and all this, but I suppose more often than not, it probably is a foul, like, club level, inter-county level and things like that. But I suppose where is the fine line? Where do you draw it? Barry, like no more so than the crowd giving out about the short hand passes. If you or any of your buddies in the middle are keep blowing for short hand passes, geez, you'd be doing well to have 2 or 3 guards walking back with you to the.
Yeah, no, that's a really good comparison. It is the Derek Ling trying to mollify the Kilkenny crowd because they're used to a certain way, and he's going to get it in the neck, and you multiply that by 10. If some referee decides he's going to blow all these foul hand passes, Sean Clear could have blown 30 yesterday for hand passes alone, and like 3 out of 4 of those then results in a scoreable free, because any free within 100 meters is scoreable. Like so, but it's also the game is like even Shane's time, like it's unrecognizable in terms of, like, do you know what I mean? Like it's just the short hand passes off the shoulder. It's more like getting football in a way. In some ways, lads come off the shoulder. Short stick passes and so on. Like it really is short puck outs. It really has, like, it's just changed. I couldn't get over Waterford on Saturday even. Like it was nearly give the extra pass, even if you were 40 yards out and you were guaranteed slotted over. But the real good thing about the league too, like the Munster Championship is going to be unreal this year, because you have 5 teams there, and you could actually make a strong case that the 5 of them are like, okay, Clare poor the weekend, but like we saw last year, a lot of players come back yet. Tony wasn't there. A lot of players come back yet. Like to make the knockout stages of the Munster Championship, particularly with Pat and Liam in Cork and Tipp, because they're clearly a goal scoring. Enda Maca had a good piece the other day. We know what Liam Cahill is, from the under 20s and with Waterford. Don't take the handy point if it means one more pass or one more sidestep means you're clean through. He wants goals. Tipp and Cork, I'd reckon they won't win any game this year unless they have a minimum of 3 goals scored per game.
Yeah, I think
it's going to be fantastic viewing.
Yeah, like I actually was having this text conversation last night, Mikey, with Shane, and it's a bold statement, I know, and probably people will say, what the hell is he talking about? But I would actually nearly argue at this point that the 5 best teams in hurling are all in the one province.
Yeah. Was that
Munster snobbery there?
We don't have many listeners in Kilkenny, do we? No.
Not anymore.
I throw Galway, as I said to you last night, Rory. I would throw. I have Galway there, number 2. I think they will come good eventually, but the other 4 will probably be from Munster. And look, I suppose us being from Munster and all that, we're probably. We have this snobbery, we're told by our Leinster counterparts, but at the moment, I don't care.
At the
moment, we're just a stronger province.
I think the Munster Hurling Championship this year is going to be, it's just going to be epic. Because I mean, you couldn't pick 3 right now who's going to actually come out of it. Limerick +2 maybe, but Jesus, it's going to be an absolutely unbelievable. I'd nearly go so far as to say it's the best competition that the GAA have, including the All Irelands.
Okay. So then do we have to understand then, Rory, more and more so for people to realise we're going to get this, please God, cracker of championships, hopefully Leinster as well, that we have to say, look, if we don't always get it each week in the league, it's okay, lads. It's coming. I think it's like at September, right? You get a little present, okay? But you're saying to yourself, Santa is coming, lads. Just hold out. He is coming in 2 months' time. It's going to be brilliant.
Just to box off there, one other thing, just in relation to Barry's point around the hand passing and the throwing of the sliotar. like, I don't know about, but you mentioned, Barry, about the potential of referees being pulled in now and given a curly finger from the powers that be about pulling up on it. I don't know if that's really a long-term solution. Like, like if you want to implement and
It hasn't worked the last couple of
It
years because
hasn't
they've done it early in the. They usually do it early in the league.
And a lot of it probably comes down to a referee's ability to actually see the execution. And I'd be of the very strident view that the sooner we start at least trialing a second referee in hurling, the better. Because if you have a second pair of eyes on the field, you might actually help spot a lot more of these. Maybe it's the case that you have a senior ref and a junior ref, and you have, but at least if you have somebody out there and you could say, look, you watch for the throws, I look after everything else, or something along those lines. But to call them all in and say, lads, we need to tighten up. No, the handpass to hit at the championship, and then it'll all go back to the same old again. Like, that's not a long-term solution, I would suggest.
Maybe we can have a team of 12 of them and they could wear black and white stripes and all carry yellow flags. Try something a little bit different. That's what you need to keep your eyes on everything that's going on in a hurling field. Like,
but actually, even from my time, when it was more traditional game, like the games that Shane tend to play, it was more traditional, lads and positions and so on. Like, it is definitely even much more difficult to referee now because they're probably gone to a new level with strength and conditioning. And then there's so much short stuff that you're almost bringing into contact and you're getting it off the shoulder, and there's much more contact and much more, tendency to maybe the half foul or spare hand, call it what you want. Like, it definitely is. It's much easier to referee when the likes of Jackie gets it in the cornerback position and he lamps it 75 yards down to Owen Larkin and Shane competing for it under the same ball, and then it's suddenly just two of them, and suddenly it's very rarely two now. Like, it's 4, 5, 6 lads competing for it.
Yeah.
Like, it will be, it will be difficult. It's definitely hard again to referee because there's more contact. More like we all said among referees, hurling was easier against referees than football.
Yeah.
And that's still the case, I think, but I think the gap has narrowed.
Oh, it's definitely narrowed. Shane,
it's interesting.
Shane,
like, getting back, like, I would think that, like, the possibility, you couldn't rule the possibility that Cork and Tipp, you've been into a bookies and you put odds on Cork and Tipp reaching the All-Ireland hurling final this year. You wouldn't get massive odds. I think they're both in a really good place at the moment, and yet obviously and yet they both might get out of Munster.
Yeah, keep that down over. Keep that.
Just finally on the hand passing, Shane, I'd just be interested in your perspective as a former player. I think a second referee is a great idea, but it's probably, considering the referee population at the moment, is probably not realistic. So you get two other solutions that tend to get thrown up for this problem, if you consider it a problem. One is the eradication of the hand pass and bring in like the brick flick as the only means of a short pass. Or second, do away with calling fouls on a hand pass and just leave it as like almost open season for underhand throws. Do you like either of those as some sort of a solution, or are they both terrible ideas?
They're not terrible ideas, no. Like, I mean, I suppose the chance of them happening would be the same as maybe Rihanna performing at half time in the All-Ireland hurling final. To be honest with you,
she'll be quite heavily pregnant by then, Shane. So it's not going to happen.
But look, childminders are great now. So I don't think it'll go to that extreme. No, I don't think you take away the hand pass. It is, in inverted commas, a skill of the game. It is being abused at the moment. But if it was the biggest problem we had in hurling, I think the majority of people, lads, would just go, look, we'll let it go. Like, that's my honest opinion.
Would you be in favour of, let's say, putting a limit? You're allowed two consecutive.
Let's
say two. I'm just making up an.
Yeah. I suppose you're making it harder and like Barry there again.
But are you though? Are you? Like, can referees not count? Can referees not count to two?
Come here. Watch Key Lynch. Watch that little triangle. There could be 5 hand passes in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So I just think, it obviously is a bugbear for a lot of people, and it obviously is an issue. There is a breach of the rules in the game. Like, what's the quick fix for it? I don't know, lads. I don't know. Make the smart slitter smarter, that it actually beeps when it isn't a proper hand pass. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how you could do that. No,
that's a Mensa member slitter there. I feel we're going down a rabbit hole here. It could be down to sleep deprivation. We'll move on to Salt Hill, because Barry's had to talk about Westmeath. Shane's got to talk about Tipp now. We have to give Rory his chance to talk about another very impressive Cork performance, Rory. Only the league, yada, yada, yada. But, that third quarter was impressive stuff.
There was a few things that stood out. I like, again, no different to Shane, reflecting on Tipperary's performance. I wouldn't be getting too carried away, but I do think to go up to Galway, to put 4-24 on the board, to have the game more or less
in February. That's
in Salt Hill, where it holds.
There was no wind, Marty said.
No, apparently it was a calm day.
That's their 1 mile day of the year now. That's done.
There was a kind of a sevens feel to it at times. It was very loose and it was open, and there were handy scores aplenty. I thought actually Galway played really well in the first 20. They kind of kept Cork in the game. Galway's discipline, pushing in the back, arms around, chop downs, little flakes across the arms. Like, they were all penalised. I just thought, definitely going to need to tighten up on that. And Cork basically ran riot for 5 minutes after half time, scored 2-3 unanswered, and that was it. The game was busted. Then from Galway perspective, there was two things that stood out for me though. One, which I didn't see anybody pick up on just yet, but I thought would give a very good insight into Pat Ryan and the way he thinks. So in the lead up to the second Cork goal after half time, I think it was the Conor Lehan one, or was it Shane Barrett? I can't remember which one now, but Oisin Salmon had been booked in the first half by Johnny Murphy, who had a good game, by the way. And in the lead up to the Cork goal, just after half time, he hit a flake across. Now, like, a referee sometimes in that scenario might decide, look, they've scored a goal, I'm not going to double down here by giving him a second yellow and sending the fella off as well. But he didn't. He made the correct decision and he sent Oisin Salmon off, and Galway were down to 14 players. But what I thought was very interesting was within a minute and a half of that happening, Pat Ryan took Sam Quirke off. Now, Sam Quirke had been booked about 10 minutes before half time. And it was a proper booking. It was a shoulder charge to the head. Maybe even you could have even considered a red card. But anyway, I thought what was interesting from Pat Ryan's point of view was the way he thinks, in that I'm not going to give him the opportunity to even things up here, because Sam was obviously skating on thin ice and he whipped him straight away. So to my mind, that showed a sense of a shrewdness on his part that I think from a Cork supporter's point of view, you'd be encouraged, that you just get a sense you won't be found wanting on the sideline here for a fella to be thinking smart, thinking quick on his feet. And the other big thing, I suppose, was the form of Declan Dalton. I mean, a guy that was discarded last year, and maybe
the former goalkeeper, isn't he, Rory? He's been around the squad a bit.
Underage, yes. Like, I think, to be fair to the previous management, there was a sense that when the summer sod comes in, the pace quickens, that he just doesn't have the legs for intercounty hurling, for the, to kind of, but look, at the same time, he does give you a target option. He's a very good stick merchant. I mean, he's fantastic skills. And the one thing that I thought was very peculiar, which I really enjoy, is his free-taking style. A lot of free-takers nowadays, as we all know, they stand over the ball. He steps into it and he holds the hurley with kind of a double grip at the top. And he kind of, it's a jab lift as opposed to a roll lift. So when he flicks it up, the ball is pretty wild. So to actually make that kind of a contact from that distance, John Gardner was kind of the last fella that I saw that, but even he didn't really have that style, So there's a kind of an unusual element to the way he plays the game. He's very unorthodox, and I think he could be a really good option for Cork coming into championship. But I don't necessarily ever see him playing 70 minutes. But yeah, I think from a Galway perspective, look, I think they've a bit of work to do. They have a few players still to come back, as do Cork, by the way. Alan Connolly, again, no sign yesterday, and I think he's another player that I'd have an awful lot of time for. Mark Coleman, Tim O'Mahony, still a few players to come back too. But yeah, I just felt like it was a classic league game in that you can't be reading too much into it either.
No, Barry, Cork, the one thing you'd appreciate about their attack is they're very direct. They're really running straight at Galway. And the Galway defence is one that a lot of teams would think twice about running at Galway defenders. But Cork, Lehan, Dalton, these lads, they were pinning back the ears and just running at Galway, which is a brave enough tactic.
And like, Darrell Skin wasn't playing either. Pat Horgan, Jack O'Connor, guy who got injured. I forget the guy. did his ankle last week. Robbie
Off.
You know, like this. You mentioned Alan. Like there's 4 or 5 potential. You would have said nearly of the first starting sextet in a way didn't play yesterday, and like they're the kind of team that, you know, a bit like Tipp in a way. I know I keep picking them up to them, but they will get better with good sod and top of the ground and Thurles and Parky Quee, where they play a lot of their matches when we come to the round robin. You know, there really will be, and like, what do you call it? The Gaelic grounds now have been resodded and a fantastic surface now. Like it's really going to be a great shootout with these teams. Like Cork, very impressive so far. I'd say now they have Westmeath. I think they've Westmeath next, so they'll have 6 points and pretty much nearly guaranteed semi-final place with 6 points, really. And they're not out in the first round.
Are the semi-finals gone?
No, still got semis.
No, it's just a quarter.
Yeah. So like,
don't mention the war.
Yeah, but as well as that, they're going to be they're the only team not out in the first round, the Munster round robin.
Yeah.
So like, there's no doubt it's a long time. God, since Cork won a National League title, 98. Sorry.
Yeah.
Obviously heralded a golden period too. Like, so, you know, I would think that there'd be I'd say Pat Ryan is not averse to the idea that getting to a league final, which they got to last year, didn't perform, but getting to a league final this year with no round robin, which means they're going to about 3 weeks before championship. That's ideal preparation. You know, you can just train hard, get a week off, taper, whatever. League final, you know, you can't win enough national two to win. Like, and Cork haven't won a national title in whatever 18 years.
Yeah. 2005.
Yeah. If
So,
you
like,
see a
you know,
see a 2-euro coin on the floor, you have to pick it up.
Keep reminding us there, Barry.
Like I do think that, you know, new manager, you know, like Shane Kingston, all those lads, like there's serious pace and serious potential in that team. And they've had good underage coming through now. You mentioned there, like, lads were missing yesterday. If Mark, I don't know what Mark Coleman's situation is, whether he'd be back. I don't think so.
Yeah.
He seems to have a longer term, but I keep going back to the same thing. But like 3 out of 5 teams, and talk about a group of death in World Cup and soccer and so on. This is like 3 out of 5, 2 big teams, you know, and that's probably why John Cahill has Limerick in a better place than they were 12 months ago, because he realizes you lose your first game in the round robin and you are really looking nearly at knockout hurling.
Yeah.
And like you're playing the first couple of weeks in April, like knockout championship, virtually.
Yeah. Shane, to get away from the Cork loving, you said you'd have Galway in there at number 2. Thanks for including a Leinster county in your top 5. It's very good of you. What is your reason for optimism? You know, outside of the fact Henry Sheffield's their manager and they've bucket loads of talent. You're just marking this down as early rounds of the league. They've been trying a lot of players. What are you seeing at Galway that you like at the moment?
I just think I do think that when they get everyone right and they get everyone fresh, like I was just looking through there about players involved in Fitzgibbon. There's 37 Galway players involved in Fitzgibbon, right? And there's 20 Cork players involved. Now they're not all in the senior panels, but a lot of them are, right? So I think when the Fitzgibbon is done next weekend, that you'll have, like Henry Sheffield in particular, will have a bigger pool of fresher players to pick from. Okay, I put it like that. I'm talking about Evan Nyland, Brian Concannon, even Oisin Salmon. Now, he got sent off yesterday. They've done a lot of hurling over the last few weeks, and they'll be fresher, and they'll be, you know, because they'll be fresher, they'll be able to make decisions better and quicker, etc. Tiernan Killeen, Donal O'Shea's son, as I said, he bulked up. TJ Brennan. A lot of these guys are still involved with Fitzgibbon or were up to last week. So I think that Henry Shefflin, there was no real panic with him yesterday. I didn't see him that he was overly disappointed at the end of the game. I think he was very disappointed with maybe the reaction when they went down to 14, like Cork just steamrolled them, as I was saying to Rory there before. It was probably the most unphysical Galway performance, if that's a word, that I've seen for some time. We associate him with big guys, physical guys that are able to hurl. And I still think when it comes down to it, they were the closest to Limerick last year when they both went toe-to-toe in championship. And I think when he gets everyone back, I still do fancy him. And I still think they'll have a big say in the league. Because I think this will be maybe a bit of a kick up the arse for them that they might need it. Like, that Cork came up without, you mentioned them all, lads. talk about Kilkenny missing 1/3 of their team. Cork could have been missing maybe 50-60% of their team yesterday, potentially, when it comes to championship. And they turned them over. And 4-24, they haven't a hope of winning a game if they're conceding 4 goals. So I think that would be a massive stick to beat with them. So look, I still think Galway will be fine. If I just talk about Cork just for 1 second, it was just one quote that I heard from Conor Lehan after the match. I just thought it was a brilliant quote from him. And he was interviewed. And I love Conor Lehan as a hurler. I love him, but I think he's a confidence player. And I think he's got a bit of his confidence back because of the trust this management have in him, in my opinion, right?
Played the full match again yesterday.
And we spoke about last week, Rory. I think he was getting taken off in the first game under other managements, in my opinion, okay? But he got that point against Limerick and how he was brilliant yesterday. And he said, they asked him about what's different, like, or what do you feel is different? And he just said, we're just responding in the moment now. And I thought I was thinking about it going, that's a brilliant quote, like whether he didn't overthink it or anything, but he meant it. And I just thought back, right? In the Munster League, they were down 8 points against Tipp. They were down 8 points against Limerick. And, you know, they had to claw their way back into that in the first half yesterday. And I just thought, right, that this group of Cork players are responding in the moment. They're walking the walk and they're talking the talk. And they're doing it like. So that's why I think that it is a great group there for Cork. It was a great win from yesterday. Lads, I tell you, it's fair hard up to Salt Hill and beat Galway in the league.
Yep.
Because I have never played up there that it hasn't been gale force wind, even on nice days. And if it was a calm day yesterday, I guarantee it was still fairly breezy there. Right? So that's just the way Salt Hill plays. So well done, Cork. Great victory. Am I worried about Galway? I'm not. I don't think Henry Sheffield is either. I still do actually think that they might have a say by come to the semi-finals of the league as well.
Yeah. So moving on, Rory, just a quick mention on Dublin and Antrim, which seems to be a very entertaining game. Micheál Donoghue seems to have pretty immediate impact there. I know it's Antrim, but Antrim are, as they showed against Kilkenny in the first week, they're competitive, and they did make this interesting in the last 5 minutes. But in the same way as Galway made the Cork game interesting in the last 5 minutes, the chances of they would have needed another 5 or 10 minutes kind of thing. The spread of scores from Dublin is really impressive. Donal Burke obviously kind of stepping into that role now as scorer in chief. There was a lot of doom and gloom around Dublin hurling, and I know it's a draw against Waterford in the first round and they've beaten Antrim, which is a game they'd be expected to win. But at least they won it, and the manner in which they won it, like, I think it'll be encouraging to Dublin hurling fans.
I think they'll be very encouraged by what they're seeing so far. Micheál Donoghue gave an interview before the game yesterday, and he mentioned the word identity twice, maybe 3 times in the course of the interview. And I think that's very much what they're looking to try and carve out, is a kind of a new identity for this team. You know, they've lost some players. We know Liam Rush and Chris Crummy have decided to go travelling. I don't know what's going on with Danny Sutcliffe, whether or not he will be back at some point in the near future. You would hope that he will be. He'll definitely add a little bit more substance to that half forward line. Donal Burke, I'd say, would get on any team in the country, you know, just given the quality of play that he can produce from open play and from dead balls. They've got arguably the best fullback in the country, man, in the most problematic position, I would suggest, maybe for a lot of counties, because it is a hard position to find somebody to fill that role, and he's probably the best that there is. So he's got a lot of good component parts. I just think, like yesterday they came flying out of the blocks, and they had kind of more or less, you know, and I think modern intercounty hurling is fascinating, I think, in that regard. Like, you have to be very, very careful. What's that old saying that they used to say in relation to golf majors, in that you can't win it on the first day, but you can certainly lose it. And I think in hurling, it's quite similar in that you might necessarily win the game in the first 10 minutes, but you can definitely lose it in the first 10 minutes if you're not switched on from the get-go, because the damage that teams can do in such a short little burst and spells of periods, they can absolutely destroy you. And I think Dublin kind of gave themselves a cushion, which maybe, you know, just refused to allow Antrim any sort of foothold in the game whatsoever. And I think from there they found it quite difficult by the time they managed to sort of reassert themselves. I'd say the game was more or less gone from them. They did put respectability on it at the end. I think Donald Cusack mentioned it last night, that they're just struggling to make that breakthrough. They are doing an awful lot of the right things. You would love to see a fifth competitive team in Leinster. They're probably the closest that could maybe achieve that, but they're still that little bit off, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're two counties, Barry, aren't they? Where they are a different level. Dublin are obviously a level above Antrim, but they're two counties I think people in hurling kind of feel a little bit invested in. They feel if hurling's healthy in Dublin, that can only be good if if hurling is kind of getting its fair share of the limelight from the footballers. And obviously Antrim as the northern outpost of kind of top level hurling, who have been in the doldrums for a fair few years recently. If the two of them can be competitive in the Leinster, properly competitive in the Leinster Championship, those of us on the East Coast can take some heart in that. And hurling in general, it needs as many top level counties as it can get. So to see that match yesterday played as competitively as it was, it's early in the season, but it's a good sign, I suppose, is the way to put it.
You've lost him now, Mikey, you see.
I've lost him, he's gone. I didn't include Westmeath.
He's coming back.
But look, on the Antrim thing, lads, if I could touch on that, Darren Gleeson is up there, right? And I'll be good buddies with Darren, would have heard of him and everything, and where he took that over from, and I'm just saying because he's a friend of mine as well, but he took it over from a dark place, a couple of hundred people going to a match in Cork Park to full houses there now. So success is relative, but I think that I agree with you, Mikey. I think this moral victory thing is gone, and I do think that for themselves as a group to be taken even more seriously than what they are, because nobody's going up Corrigan Park now anymore thinking,
handy one.
Yeah, it's to be tough, but you know what, we'll come out by 8 or 9. Everyone's going up there. There's no more surprise element in Corrigan Park. I think that's gone, and I think that's a credit to the players and the management. But I just think that they do need to travel somewhere now and get a big win, and I think they know that themselves. And I'm just looking at round 3 here now, and I think they're away to Waterford. And Waterford with guys coming back all the time. Austin Gleeson was absolutely unbelievable again the other night. I think he's nearly played himself with the impact so mode at this stage. He scored 7 points the other day when he came on. But I just think Antrim need for themselves and for the group to get a victory soon, to really kind of rubber stamp this is all the effort we're making, everything we're doing, lads. Yeah, it's great, and all the kudos we're getting from outside.
We're here now.
Yeah, but you know what? We need to get a win now. We need to get a result, and I think that's, Mikey, just to pick up your point, I think that's what they need more than anything now, is they need a result in the league. And not against Laois or Westmeath. With all due respect to them, it needs to be either turn over Waterford or turn over Tipp or something like that. For me, personally.
Yeah, we lost you there, Barry, I think, and you're back. Good to see you.
Yeah, you're okay. Yeah.
We were just saying that Antrim and Dublin, hurling in general, needs these two counties to be strong. So it's kind of the closeness and the quality of that match yesterday is heartening for the game of hurling.
Yeah, and I think the biggest advantage Dublin have is that the managerial appointment, which I think took a lot of people by surprise when it happened. I saw Franny is in the line. I think they have Noah Larkin, that the full Galway 2017 All-Ireland winning. And there's not that many, if you think about it, now that Brian Cody's gone and John Kiley's always in Limerick, there's not that many All-Ireland winning managers knocking around the place that you can pick up and say, Michael Donoghue, very calm on the sideline, two good lads with him, Franny Ford and Noah Larkin. I think it's the biggest advantage Dublin have, is that a really proven managerial team to go in there, and there's obviously potential in Dublin hurling, lots of hurlers, and I suppose a bit like at a lower level than Munster, I suppose you don't have as many teams at the higher level, but that battle for, if you want to call it the third place, if you want to call it that, Mikey might be offended by that, but the Wexford Dublin, getting that into the qualifiers from the round robin, Munster's more competitive. We know that there's 5 top teams, but Dara and Mike and Micheál Donoghue will be looking at that now. They're always looking at maybe turning over Galway or Kilkenny maybe in a one-off game, but they're really looking at the 1-point game last year, and it kind of scuppered Dublin's chances in a way. But the big battle there for that third spot, because if you're not in the third spot in Leinster, you're in no man's land. You really are. You're not much above then the Antrims and the Laois and Westmeaths, really, and that's not where they want to be.
It's true. Munster may have the quality, but Leinster has this desperate sense of desperation. That's what we got. That's our selling point. Finally, lads, we'll go back to Saturday night, and a match I think we were all like really looking forward to, and Shane, it really was quite disappointing in the end, really, wasn't it? And as good as Limerick were at times, you did get the sense that Clare just didn't fire. I don't think you can give Limerick all the credit here. Clare just didn't seem to fire, did they?
No, they didn't. No, Sheedy said a 6-point hammer, and I agree totally with him.
Yeah.
It was when the fixtures were made, like, you know, and I was on duty in Portlaoise, and nobody would have believed me if they said, you know what, bet you know next weekend it'll be a better match above in Portlaoise between Waterford and Laois than it will be between Limerick. If people will be looking at you going, you're mad, no way. And it actually was like, it was actually more up to minute, I think it was minute 42 when Aidan Corby got his marching orders. It was actually a very good game above in Portlaoise. Like it never got into life at all. And look, lads, we could be here all day talking about it and everything. Here's one thing I took from it, right? And I take credit to it's a guy on Twitter, GA Statsman, I think he's called. So I have to give him credit to this. In the first half, right, from play, you're talking about teams getting shots off and efficiency and everything, right? Limerick got off 15 shots from play, open play now, not from frees, right? And they scored 12. How many shots did Clare get off from play in the first half, lads? Would you guess it?
8.
So, all right, you know, like that Kevin Bridges sketch where, you know, how much did it cost you? Oh, yeah. 50. They got off 5 shots from play, lads, right? In the whole first half now, and they scored 2. So that to me, even alone, we could go through everything else, efficiency and everything like that, you know, they got off 5 shots from play and scored 2. Like, they were miles off it there the other night. They really were. And whether they weren't allowed to play or not, I don't know. But I mean, Limerick dominated that. It was a 6-point hammering. And yet, John Cahill comes out of it perfectly set up with a stick to beat him with, saying, I was happy enough with up to minute 55. And what happens then? Clare actually outscored them 1-9 to 1-1. A perfect situation for John Cahill. Missing 9 or 10 of the best players in the country. He wins the match by 6 points pulling up. And yet he can still go back to them tonight and tomorrow night and go, that is not good enough for me. Do we want to be on this panel or not? Lads, like, I mean, that's why they're way ahead. Like, they really are. That's why they're number 1. And we're all playing catch up. And will we get there someday? Hopefully we will. But Kylie, like, another quote, when you get your chance, you have to take it. Adam English, did he take his chance? For me, he did. I mean, it was epitomised by the way he get that ball into a Dalek. And then Micheál Houlihan, who said, he was interviewed afterwards and asked him how you find it. He said, the work is hard, but the hard work is enjoyable. And I think that's what the group is all about. Like. The regulars are being kept on their toes by the Micheál Houlihans, the Adam Englishes, the Colin Coughlins of the panel, who, if they're getting settled at all, lads, right? I'm talking about the top players now. Like, if they're going, I'm kind of established now. And we were all like, you know, we can all see teams and players in every sport, and you get to a stage in their careers, you get to a stage in the team's growth that say, I'm going to be playing anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to push hard in A versus B here. I don't. Like, they can't, because Colin Coughlin's saying, come here, Kyle Hayes, it's not happening for you. I'm taking your jersey, like. Or Darragh O'Donovan is saying, so I better step it up here, or it's my clubmate's going to be playing midfield instead of against me. Shane O'Brien is coming in as an 18, 19-year-old saying, come here, Shane Flanagan, if it's not working out, I want that jersey. And that's why they're so good, lads. Because everybody is keeping everybody on their toes. John Cahill is finding something to get them better every time. They're in a great place. And lads, I tell you, when they get everybody back, I mean, it's going to be some nightmare to pick that team. And that's why, look, we're not blowing them up here, lads. We're just stating the facts. They're the best team in the country. The rest of us have to try and get there. Clare were a country mile off it the other night. Whether they meant to be or not, or they're training hard. 5 shots from playing and open in the first half of hurling. I tell you, if the stick is big that John Cahill has to beat him with, it is a fair big stick Brian Lohan has to beat.
We're going to be in that territory where you know, the best game of hurling in the country is the A versus P game down in Limerick. Like we used to
but I actually think Shane Mikey makes a really good point there, because of all teams, Limerick have been unbelievably set the last 4 or 5 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, bar Mike Casey getting injured, Barry Nash come in at cornerback. Other than that, like half back line, midfield, half forward line, full forward line. Okay, Peter Casey was injured for a while, but like an unbelievably settled team. And I'd say Kylie deep down would like that, you know, hard to win. What are they going for now? 5 out of 6 or whatever it is. Hard to win that many All-Irelands at that level without some kind of, changeover, without some kind of, you just don't see it. I mean, the last team we saw it that was that settled was the Kerry team in football back in the 70s. Like even Dublin team that dominated football in the last 5 or 6, 7 years, they never had the exact same team out.
No, but he has two new players. He has 2 new players this year, Barry, and their names are Keane Lynch and Peter Casey.
Peter Casey got 1 point there in the first half. Oh my God!
You're going. These lads didn't hardly play last year. 2 new guys coming in absolutely busting for road. Jesus, lads,
Yeah, he was. I have to say, Rory, I thought there was 1 point there in the first half Peter Casey got from the sideline, and you're just like, there's not very many guys who can score that point. He is like a new player for Limerick. Magic. And it's scary.
He's a magician, absolute a little wizard. The hands on him, the wrists on him, and they're just it's an embarrassment of riches. The one thing that the one person I'd like to pick up, and I just felt so strongly about it the other night. I don't often tweet anymore, but I mean, Garrod Hegarty, for me, I think we are potentially witnessing an all-time great. I mean, there might be, I don't know how many all-time greats come off this Limerick team. There might be 2 or 3, but Garrod Hegarty for me is definitely going to be one of them. I mean, does he ever play badly? He gave away a cheap free down the other night, and he picked up a booking, I think, for his trouble, which Clare pointed from. And the very next puck out, he wins an incredible ball over his head on the run and sets up a score at the other end. Just mentally as tough a player as there is, physically. I don't know what you do with him. On top of all of that, he has unbelievable skill. Like, he can get the ball up in the tightest of spaces. Wonderful vision to see what's going on around him. Peerless accuracy from any range. Scores goals, tackles back, big, powerful, pace.
Unbelievable golfer as well.
Unbelievable. I mean, I think, and it should have been a standing ovation. He should have got. No, he did get a very good ovation when he was being taken off the other night. I just think we're witnessing one of the real greats here. Never really seems to get injured. He's always fit. I mean, I think any opportunity you have to go and watch him play, I think people should grab it with both hands. And one interesting thing about him as well, you mentioned multi-sport skills. If you put Garrod Hegarty, the Gaelic footballer, into the Limerick football team, you have a different Limerick football team. Yeah. Because I've seen him playing Gaelic football, by the way.
He was on the football before the hurling, wasn't he? There he's just an athlete, lads. He's just. But look, we can all have big guys, and they can do a job for you. But they have a selection of 6'4", 5'6" guys who are some of the most riskiest hurlers we've seen in modern day hurling. They're taking all the boxes,
Kyle Hayes comes back in. It was unreal the other night again, So
yeah, they are impressive. And Barry, they can do this to a team, can't they? Like Clare would have had a fair bit of confidence coming in after an easy opening round win, and talk about they're building the squad, and then, as Shane says, you can't be absolutely sure of their motives, but whatever way Owen wanted him to go out and play, he would have been expecting more than a goal from play or from frees from his full forward line. That's all they got. Galvin got a goal, Mark Rogers, Peter Duggan without a score. It's very early in the season, but when you're going to have to probably beat that team to win any silverware in the summer, it could probably take a bit of the wind out of your sails too, and make training Tuesday night that little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and I went on particularly earlier on about Cork and Tipp scoring goals and teams don't want to get goals, but you go and you try and get a goal against, Rory mentioned about the all-time greats. Sean Finn plays another 2 seasons the way he's been playing for the last 6-7 years, and he'll be, I don't know who the greatest cornerback of all time is, but Sean Finn will be right up there because he's a really kind of a traditional cornerback. He's a real man marker. Barry Nash is more of a playmaker at this stage because he's a spare man for the puck outs and he sets up a lot of scores, and he's a forward by trait and earlier by nature. You'll need to beat that Limerick team. You will need goals, but by God, that is easier said than done. To get in past those lads, in past the half back line with Declan Hannon sitting, and with Dan Morrissey who can play anywhere, and Diarmuid Byrne. It's just, I can't see a team beating them unless you scored at least 2 goals. Outpointing them has nearly been impossible in the last 5 or 6 seasons. And even the one year they were beaten against Kilkenny, they had a stat there a bit like Shane threw out there a minute ago in terms of the incredible number of wides that day against Kilkenny in that semi-final. They had about 19 wides.
Badly.
And started badly one.
Barry, in your opinion, is it gone to a stage with Limerick now, right? I'm talking about championship Limerick now, okay? Where the best 20 lads are there and they're fit. that they have to be poor and the rest of us have to be brilliant to beat them? Or what is it like?
I think if they're 8 out of 10 across the team, or 8.5 out of 10, you'd be very hard pushed. You'd need 10 out of 10. That's not going to happen from 10 lads. Like, you'd really, you have to get them on a slight off day. The only off day they've had in 5 years was that semi-final against Kilkenny, where they lost by a point. And if the game had gone to extra time, I've no doubt they would have won that day. They were just coming, just misjudged the whole thing. And Keane had a very bad wide at one stage in that game. They had horrendous wides in that game. And obviously Kilkenny, dug it out, like, but
but Tipp won Ireland, Barry, and that's all that matters in the end.
Mikey, by the way, the next time you contact me, I'm going to have to vary my approach. Your man has mentioned golf, Kevin Bridges, and Santi in one podcast. I tell you what, beat that.
And Rihanna, no, I got Rihanna in there as well.
And Rihanna, sorry, yeah. I tell you what now, McGrath, tell you what, Tommy Tiernan should have you on fucking stage beside him.
He's a man of many talents, a polymath, as we call him.
The kids in Ballyhinch School are very, very lucky.
Very lucky.
They're very lucky, very.
Shane, before we completely blow your head so that it doesn't fit in the screen anymore, a final point on Limerick. And you've probably been involved in some squads like this. At what point does healthy competition in a squad, bleed over into lads being disillusioned and getting cranky and kind of not being motivated because they're not getting game time? Is an inter-county season got a few enough games and is short enough that doesn't happen? Or over the course of years, with so many talented hurlers in Limerick probably, not making the matchday squad, never mind not getting the game, could that become a problem for John Cahill, or is that just one of his skills is managing that situation?
It's a very good question, Mikey. Yeah, and you know what? If you have 34, 35 guys, not a hope you're going to keep every one of them happy. But you know what? The consistent for Limerick has been with all this success is the management team has been the same. So when you were coming in there, the culture. Like, if you take it like, say, when there's a change in management, things change and maybe certain standards slip here and there, unknowns to people. But the management has been the constant there for Limerick. No more so than management was the constant with Kilkenny. You knew going in there that if I start sulking here now, or if I start putting a puss on it, or if I sit in the wrong place maybe, I just won't be, it's not accepted here. And you know that before you go in there. Like, there's guys who've gone in there on the back of really good club championship performances with Limerick. Aidan O'Connor there from Ballybrown. You're talking about O'Donnell from Monaleen, right? Other guys who've gone in there on the back of really good club championships, but they know before they go in there, because their buddies are in there or their club mates are in there, look, this won't be accepted. You have to come in and try and earn this jersey. And if you don't do that, there's another 2 or 3 guys that they will bring in instead of you. So come in and give it everything. If you don't like it, it's not for you, fine. You'll be told fairly quickly. Like 4 lads were told the other day by John Cahill, we don't need you now for the rest of the year. We might have a look at you again. One of them has 3 All-Ireland medals in the form of Pat Ryan. So I think, Mikey, when there is that standard set from the top, I think you're going in there knowing what is expected. And if you are the person who's not happy about it, you've 2 choices. You can either work hard to try and get on it, or you can stay at home and watch Love Island. It's up to you.
Another pop culture reference. I love it, Shane.
Actually, sorry, Mikey, you make one very good comparison. Another team in green going well at the moment, like the Irish rugby team. If you told anyone you'd beat France without, say, 3 or 4 probably Lions players, Jamison, Gibson Park, and Henshaw, Furlong, and the hooker Sheehan, is it? Who's probably the best hooker in the world at the moment. 4 guys, and yet the third choice hooker comes in and has a huge game. And now suddenly Robbie Henshaw, who's a Lions player, is not guaranteed to get his place back because McCluskey, and it's the exact same that Seamus saying there. You either buy into it or you sulk and you stay at home and you're not part of that success. And, that's Kylie has that now in terms of, lads, no young lad in Limerick or no lad who's 20 years of age in Limerick and a good club hurler give his eye teeth to be even invited onto to make the championship squad is what they're absolutely mad keen to do now. Like it was in Kilkenny during the golden time, and like it was when Shane was with Tipperary and they had their 9 or 10 years where they were either top team or second team in the country. There was no one turning down chances to be on the squad. And if a lad was going well at club action, his first thought was, will Sheedy or will whoever spot me? And if you get in, then you're not going to act the clown inside, and you're going to be driven. That culture is going to drive you on. Like Micheál Hoolan the other day, Kylie gave him barely 12 points, 8 frees, brilliant frees, 4 from play, and yet Kylie barely gave him a mention after the game. And also kind of dropped a heavy hint that lads who are not playing at the moment, who were established big names, they better show their hand fairly soon, because I have lots of lads, and he was definitely firing that across the bows of some players. Yeah. Don't think, lads, you're going to come back in here now in April, because again, this whole split season, lads would want to be on the top of their game in another 3 and 4 weeks' time, or you'll see no action.
Yeah.
Great place to be for manager.
Yeah. Well, this podcast, Barry, is much like the Limerick hurling team and the Irish rugby team. You know what the standard is now. You need to get in your mentions of Rihanna, Ken Bridges, etc. And that's how you'll be invited back. We'll have you back, Barry. It's good to have a bit of extra. Someone who knows the rules is always handy.
Exactly, that is handy. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that, lads.
McGrath knows no rules in life. This time next year we won't have him. He'll be at the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Right. We'll leave it at that. It's a football week next week at the weekend. Rory will be back with you for that. I'm taking a few days to look after some small animals for the midterm. So we will chat to you then. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Rory. And we'll chat to you again soon. Good luck and goodbye.
How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.